trademark clearance. Why should you do it? Why is it important? Can you skip it? What is a knockout search? The trademark clearance is one of those things where if you are looking to spend as little as possible on your trademark work, you will likely learn to regret it because one of the things that will happen is you will either eliminate or skimp on trademark clearance searching. Why does that matter? What is trademark clearance searching? Trademark clearance is really to answer, if it's done properly, it's to answer the questions: how likely am I to get sued if I use this brand publicly, this trademark? And that's one question. And then another question that needs to be answered by trademark clearance is, what are my chances of getting this trademark registered, and what will I be facing? How hard of a fight, how much should I expect to spend to get this trademark registered, and what are my chances? So that is, answering both of those questions is what good trademark clearance searching should be doing for you. If you are not getting answers to those questions, you're not getting adequate trademark clearance searching, in my humble opinion, because at that point, how do you know whether you can move forward? Unfortunately, what happens to a lot of people is they either skip clearance searching because they don't want to spend the money, and then they just go in blind, or they get what's called a knockout search. In my, that's what many of my colleagues will call it, a direct hit search or a knockout search, which, even I used to offer those. I now don't, because it's really practically worthless, in my opinion. Again, it's presenting you with an illusion. A knockout search is really just a super narrow search which tells you if there's something that's exactly the same as yours, or like super, super close. The reason I say it's kind of worthless and an illusion is because that's if what you think you're getting is a view of what's out there that could pose a problem for you, you're not getting that with a knockout search, because the reality of what can be a conflict is way bigger than what's going to come up in a knockout search. And that's why we stopped doing it. I just didn't feel good about giving people a false sense, and people would choose it because it was cheaper, because we're not really doing full clearance. So we don't do that at all anymore. Our only level of searching is a level of searching that's broad enough and deep enough that I'm comfortable that it's actually giving you real information that has value. And by the way, we also no longer do any trademark filings without clearance searching, because again, I don't want to set people up for frustration. So what happens if you go ahead and with inadequate or no clearance searching? Here's what happens. One, worst case scenario, and I have seen this happen, usually these are people coming to me saying, what can I do about this? Is you invest in getting the product out there. Maybe you have the brand stamped on packaging or tooling that's going to be imprinted directly onto the product, or you invest in $30,000 worth of marketing collateral and domain names and all kinds of stuff. And then you launch and you get a cease and desist letter because it turns out that name is not commercially available. And so this has happened. I've seen this happen where they will come to me and say, what can we do? We just invested all this money and we love this brand. And then unfortunately, then I do the searching and I look and I'm like, unfortunately, this is not a fight you can win. These people have a registered trademark, or they have prior trademark rights that are way too close. And yes, you could fight this, but you'll probably lose, or you'll definitely lose, and it'll cost you a bunch of money before you lose. So don't fight it. Just change. So then they're out, whatever money they spent on the launch. And it's extra bad when they have, like I said, had tooling or something made which imprints the brand onto the product, or maybe they have inventory that they now have to destroy. It's a horrible situation. Don't do this. And that's because if they go forward, they could get sued. Another option, which in some ways, it's extra bad if something like that happens and it didn't happen right away. So now, in addition to being out all the money, you're out a year's worth of promotion or more, because it takes that long for the conflict to actually show up. That's actually more common than having the conflict show up right away. Another thing that can happen is, let's say it's commercially available, so you don't get a cease and desist, but then when your trademark application is examined by a human being, a trademark examiner at the USPTO, they do the trademark clearance, the trademark searching at the level that they do, which is way beyond a knockout search, and they come back with likelihood of confusion marks that you need to respond to. Sometimes you can win those because their job is to push back, and so a lot of times when we're doing clearance searching, we will say, look, there's a couple things that are close enough that an examiner might or is likely to raise them, but we can get past them if you're willing to, fight for them. And so then you just prepare for a little extra cost, and if it's worth it to you, great, we'll do it. If it's not worth it to you, then you have the opportunity to choose a different mark instead of being, 8 months in and sort of having nowhere to turn, but not wanting to lose 8 months. So it's much better to have that opportunity to avoid that mark that's going to cost more to get through, before you actually are 8 months through, before you've actually adopted the mark. If we do adequate clearance searching at the beginning, then it's disappointing when we come back with that to say it's going to cost more to fight this all the way through. Look, maybe you get lucky and your examiner does not cite those marks, and then you don't have to and it goes straight through. But I'd rather have you have more information and be prepared for the cost of the fight, or else choose something different that's going to have a cleaner shot. So those are just two things that can happen when you skip or skimp on trademark clearance searching. It's just one of those things. It's so much better to have the information ahead of time. You'll save yourself a lot of heartache and regrets, and not an insignificant amount of money. And you'll be able to put that money toward launching your brand and other things that are actually going to drive more value for you. I hope that was helpful. Catherine Cavella, IP Works Law.